They didn't wait for spring or for daylight. They waited for the wind to cut like broken glass. When the lock clicked behind me, winter took my place at the table. Snow came sideways off the river, stinging my face, pushing me backward like it wanted me gone. I stood firm. These were my steps, my porch, my boards nailed down 30 years ago with a hammer my son once borrowed and never returned. Now he leaned his shoulder into the door, the deadbolt jammed tight. "Dad, don't make this harder," Derek said through the wood, his voice soft like you talk to a dog you don't want anymore. Amanda's words slid after his, brittle and rehearsed. "We love you, but we can't keep doing this." The realtor's showing the house Sunday. It has to look unoccupied, as if I was a stain. The door cracked open just long enough to shove a box into the storm. A grocery tote toppled after it. Then the door snapped shut and the chain rattled. The porch light glared down like a search lamp. I didn't beg, didn't pound. I picked up the box. It was light. Inside, one old wool cap, a glove that wasn't even mine, my blood pressure pills with the pharmacy label peeled off, and Ellen's scarf, still carrying the faint ghost of her perfume. The blue folder with my deeds, insurance, and discharge papers? Gone. They knew exactly what they were taking. "Slide my wallet back," I said steady, right into the wood. "Tomorrow," Derek lied. Meaning never. Wind knifed down the street. Sodium streetlights turned the snow orange. Across the way, porch cameras blinked red and blue, witnesses I'd think later. "Please, Dad," Amanda added. "There's a warming vessel on Hennepin. Go there. We'll talk Monday." Monday. After the signatures. After the theft. I walked. My boots slipped, caught, slipped again. Ellen's scarf iced up at the edges where my breath touched it. A bus shelter glowed 2 blocks away, its glass fogged with strangers' warmth. I set the box on the bench, opened the tote, and found a yellow sticky note curled at the corners. Conservatorship hearing JN 14th, 10 a.m., Hennepin County, my name underlined twice. The signature wasn't mine. I stared at the flakes breaking the streetlight into sparks. My flip phone buzzed in my coat like a trapped moth. I opened it with stiff fingers. A message glowed from a corporate mask of a number. DocuSign, Hudson Trust, property transfer. Remote closing, January 2nd, 9 a.m. signer, William L. Hudson authenticated. Authenticated. By a forgery. Another buzz. My bank this time. Wire request $388,000 pending. Reply yes to authorize. NO to deny. I didn't shake. My thumb pressed the cold button, letters glowing white. NO. I held it unsent, staring across the street at my own house. Inside, shadows moved tall and smug, like wolves sniffing their den. Amanda's laugh, sharp and careless, cut through the glass. I pictured the kitchen tiles Ellen, and I laid by hand on a hot August day, Amanda asleep in rags on the floor back then, safe, loved. I'd sworn to protect her. I press send. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching from. The reflection in the shelter glass showed a man still standing. Old, yes, but steady. I raised the sticky note to the phone camera, snapped it under the bus light. Proof. Evidence. Then I walked back across the ice, square into the lens of my own doorbell cam. I opened the tote, shook it out. Pills rattled down the steps. The glove skittered away. I tied Ellen's scarf slow, deliberate for the camera's eye. Then I held up the sticky, clear enough for any judge to read. "Derek," I said to the porch, voice cutting the wind. "You locked your father out in a storm." The porch light burned, then snapped dark. Mistake. Darkness makes recordings clean. A car wheezed up, heaters steaming the windshield. The driver cracked his window, young Somali kid, Uber sign glowing. "Sir, you okay?" "I'm fine," I told him. "But do me a favor, swing your dash cam this way for 20 seconds. He did. Red light blinked. I gave him my number. "Send me a frame later." He nodded. City men learn decency faster than family sometimes. I walked again, 3 blocks down, past houses glowing with other people's dinners, into an alley that smelled of hot antifreeze and garbage lids. At the steel door of a basement gym, I pressed the buzzer. The intercom crackled, then a voice I hadn't heard in 5 years, gravel wrapped in sunlight. "Hudson? You freezing old fool. That you." "Open up, Eddie," I said. "I've got a scarf and a problem." Locks clinged. Warmth rolled out leather, sweat, wintergreen. Eddie Navarro filled the frame, shoulders wide as a freezer, hair gray at the temples, eyes still sharp enough to cut. He took one look at me, scarf, frost, the yellow sticky, and swore low. "What did they do to you, Bill?" "They made it simple," I said, stepping in. "They chose winter." Eddie shut the bolts behind me, the way a man does when he means to keep the wolves out and the truth in. He set a mug of heat in my hand. On the table, my phone buzzed again. Remote closing confirmed January 2nd, 9 a.m. Notary, Atlas and Amp. Daughters legal. Thumbnail at the bottom. My signature forged clean as daylight. Snow slid off the gym's window in a single sheet. The clock ticked like a trigger. I smiled into the steam. "Good," I said. "They just gave me the time and the place." Eddie leaned closer. "For what?" "For the first hit," I said. And the gym light flickered once, like it understood I wasn't talking about boxing. Eddie poured bourbon into my coffee. It burned just right going down, thawing out the frost that had settled in my chest. He stood with arms folded, waiting for the rest. "They forged papers," I said. "Guardianship hearing in 2 weeks. Remote transfer of my accounts in 5 days. And tonight, they put me out in the snow like a bag of trash." Eddie's jaw worked like he wanted to chew nails. "Your own kids." "My own," I said flat. Amanda's voice was steady. Derek didn't even stutter. Like they'd rehearsed it. "You got proof." I held up my phone, screen glowing with the wire request, the DocuSign notice, the video file from the porch cam. "Plenty. But proof in silence is just paper. I need noise. I need weight." Eddie nodded slow. "Then we make noise." The next morning, I walked back into daylight with a new coat Eddie had loaned me. My scarf still smelled like Ellen, half perfume, half frostbite. The house I'd built with my hands sat quiet 3 blocks over, curtains drawn. A realtor's sign leaned against the porch, still folded, waiting for the weekend. I didn't step closer. Not yet. Let them think I was gone, scattered like the snow under the plows. Instead, I walked downtown. The cold cut my face, but my legs felt steady, every step sharpening me. The first stop was the courthouse. Clerk's office smelled of toner and tired coffee. I pulled a number, waited my turn, and asked for the conservatorship docket. The woman behind the glass tapped keys, slid me a copy. Case: Amanda Hudson, Derek Hudson versus William L. Hudson. Filed 2 weeks ago. Claim: cognitive decline, risk to self, recommendation for guardianship. Attached, a notarized affidavit. My signature: clean. Too clean. I folded the papers neat, slid them into my coat. "Thank you," I told the clerk, though what I wanted to say was a different kind of noise. The second stop was First River Credit Union. I still knew the branch manager from Allen's church group, a man who thought small talk about sermons was enough to build trust. "Bill, you okay? You look a little rough." "I'm fine," I said, "but I need a copy of my account activity. Every pending transfer. And I want holds placed. Immediate." He hesitated, glancing toward the glass offices where newer staff shuffled paperwork. "Bill, there's already a guardianship authorization here. Signed documents." I slid the sticky note across the desk. "Forgery. Want to be in on it when this goes federal." His face strained. He tapped keys faster than I'd ever seen him move. 10 minutes later, a packet printed, pages of pending transfers, notes on authorizations, the scheduled wire for $388,000. I tucked it away, calm. "Lock it. Freeze it. If anything moves without me, it's your name on the line." He nodded, sweat beading under the collar. Back at the gym, Eddie had spread old ledgers across a scarred table. "You've still got friends," he said, stabbing his finger at names he'd written down. "Cops who owe you. Lawyers who drink here. Even a reporter or two who still remembers what a headline is." I ran my palm across the names. "Not yet. First, I want them comfortable. They need to believe they've already won." "How do you plan to manage that?" "By disappearing. That night, Derek's car rolled into the driveway. The porch camera caught him carrying grocery bags, whistling like a man who'd just stepped into his kingdom. Amanda followed with a folder tucked under her arm. My blue folder. Inside, they toasted something with red wine. I knew because the porch mic caught Derek saying to Freedom, "To the end of babysitting Dad." They clinked glasses. I smiled in the shadows outside Navarro's gym. Every word was mine now, stored, dated, preserved. 3 days passed. Minneapolis froze harder. The river turned white and silent. Eddie's gym became my bunker, coffee, a cot in the corner, a notebook filling line by line. Call logs, recordings, screen captures. Every morning, I checked the house from a borrowed laptop. The porch fed me their routines. Amanda leaving for meetings. Derek pacing the living room, talking into phones about appraisals and buyers. On the 4th day, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a gray coat carried a briefcase inside. 15 minutes later, he left smiling, handshakes all around. Realtor. The game was moving forward. That evening, Amanda called me. My old number lit up like she'd forgotten who bought the phone. "Dad, where are you?" Her voice wavered between concern and calculation. We didn't mean for things to get rough. It's just complicated right now. You need help. You know that, right? I didn't answer. Let the silence stretch. "Dad, please. Derek says we can work something out. Maybe the shelter lost you, maybe. Just call me back, okay?" I ended the call. Logged the time. Added the note. Day 4, first signs of panic. On day 5, Eddie slid a manila envelope across the table. "Friend of mine pulled court records," he said. "Your kids are in deeper than you thought." Inside, a copy of a loan application. Derek's name signed bold at the bottom. Collateral, the house. Claimed ownership, joint with father under conservatorship. I sat back, heart steady. He already borrowed against me. "Not yet," Eddie corrected. "Application denied last month. They'll try again once the papers go through." I traced Derek's signature with my finger. Same hand that once held mine at the state fair when he was 6. Sticky cotton candy fingers, tugging me toward the rides. Now it tugged at forgery. By the end of that week, the voicemail box was full. Amanda's voice cracked with rehearsed compassion. Derek's tone grew sharp, then desperate. Realtors wanted access. Banks wanted signatures. Their plan depended on me being broken, lost, pliable. Instead, I sat in Eddie's gym, papers stacked like ammunition, recordings archived like rounds in a magazine. "January 2nd, I said, tapping the DocuSign notice. "They want me gone by then." Eddie leaned forward. "So what happens on January 2nd? I met his eyes. Cold. Certain. "That's when winter ends for me," I said. "And starts for them." The 5th morning in Navarro's gym, I woke to the sound of pipes clinking in the ceiling and the smell of Eddie's burnt coffee. I sat up slow, back stiff from the cot, and stared at the stack of papers on the table. Their names were everywhere. Amanda's scrawled signature on petitions, Derek's handwriting on forged authorizations. I flipped a page and saw the number again, $388,000. That was the rope they meant to pull tight around my throat. Eddie lumbered over, 2 mugs in his hands. "You ready?" "Ready," I said. My voice felt like gravel, rough but steady. The first strike needed to be quiet. Not a punch, not a scream, just a pull on the thread. So I called First River Credit Union and asked for the fraud department. When the woman answered, I didn't say my name. I gave her the wire request number, the forged authorization code, and asked one simple thing: flag it federal. She hesitated, typing, then said, "Sir, this will trigger a hold and an investigation." "Good," I said. "That's the point." When I hung up, Eddie raised an eyebrow. "You just put the IRS on your own kids." "They forged my name," I said. "Let the government chew on that for a while." That afternoon, I walked to the library, hood up, scarf tight. Snow crunched under my boots, the kind of sound you can hear even through traffic. I logged onto a public computer and opened a blank email. Attached every recording from my porch camera, the phone screenshots, even Derek's toast to freedom. Recipient: a reporter Eddie knew at the Star Tribune. Subject line, guardianship fraud in Minneapolis family. No signature. Just a note, start here. By the time I walked back to the gym, Eddie's TV was on mute, showing Derek and Amanda in their driveway, a realtor gesturing toward the porch. Their smiles were wide, stretched like masks. I knew those smiles. They belonged to people who thought the finish line was in sight. That night, Amanda called again. Her message cracked halfway through. Dad, please, just talk to me. We can fix this. Derek didn't mean for it to go this far. We love you, okay? Just come home. I replayed it 3 times, listening to the wobble in her tone, the nervous breath before she said love. It wasn't love. It was fear wearing makeup. On the 7th day, Eddie slid a newspaper across the table. Front page, local realtor linked to forged guardianship filings. No names yet. Just hints. Just smoke. I folded it slow and tucked it into my coat. The fire had started. That evening I took a walk past my house. I stayed in the shadows, close enough to see lights glowing through the curtains. Amanda's silhouette leaned over the dining table, head in her hands. Derek paced the kitchen with a phone to his ear, sharp hand gestures slicing the air. I smiled behind my scarf. They were dancing to music they couldn't hear yet. My phone buzzed at midnight. Unknown number. I answered in silence. Derek's voice hissed through the line, harsh and brittle. Dad, I don't know what you're doing, but stop. You're going to ruin everything. I let him talk. Let him spill anger into the void. You're sick, he snapped. You don't even know what you're doing anymore. Finally, I spoke. One line. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then I hung up. Eddie leaned in from the doorway. First hit landed? First hit, I said. My chest felt warm, steady. And they didn't even see it. The snow outside kept falling, piling higher on roofs, erasing tracks. But I wasn't erased. I was writing a new trail. One step at a time, straight back to the door they slammed in my face. On the 10th day, the snow came heavy, wet, bending the trees low like they'd been ordered to bow. I sat in Navarro's office, lights buzzing overhead, and watched Derek's world begin to slip through cracks he didn't even know I'd made. The first call came from the bank. I'd left my flip phone on the desk, speaker on. Mr. Hudson, this is First River Credit Union. We've frozen all transactions pending a fraud investigation. The forged guardianship filings are now with the state attorney's office. I said nothing, just nodded at Eddie, who grinned around his toothpick. That evening, Amanda's voice filled my voicemail again, strained and hoarse. Dad, the realtor pulled out. The bank's saying something about suspicious paperwork. We can't sell the house until this clears up. Please, we need to talk. Please. That word tasted different when she said it. 2 days later, I took a bus to the courthouse, hood up, scarf hiding half my face. A hearing notice had been posted for Amanda and Derek's conservatorship petition. But instead of a clean docket, a bright red stamp bled across it, fraudulent documents under review. I smiled, first time in weeks. That same afternoon, Eddie's old cop friend, Morales, met us in the back booth of a diner. He slid a folder across the table, grease from the fries spotting the cover. Thought you'd want to know. Derek applied for a loan last fall using your property as collateral. Forged signatures, bad notary stamp. Application denied, but it's in the system. I flipped the folder open. There it was, Derek's name bold, my forged scrawl beneath it. Good man, I said. Careful, Morales warned. He's desperate. A man cornered by debt and ego gets dangerous. Let him, I muttered. I want him cornered. That night, I set my own trap. On a borrowed laptop, I opened a fresh email account. Attached the loan application, the guardianship papers, Derek's wire request, even a clip from the porch cam of Amanda's cold voice. He's a burden. Recipient, a local TV reporter whose face I'd seen every night at 6 o'clock. Subject, children betray veteran father for house and cash. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. 2 mornings later, Derek stormed out of the house in his coat half buttoned, Amanda chasing him down the driveway, both of them shouting. A neighbor's porch cam caught it. I knew because Eddie showed me the clip before lunch. Derek yelling about losing everything, Amanda screaming that it was his fault, not hers. Their voices carried across the snow like a confession. That evening, the news ran a teaser segment. A blurred house front. Audio of Amanda's voice, clear as day, "We love you, but we can't keep doing this." The realtor showing the house Sunday. It has to look unoccupied. My Kids' Betrayal, broadcast across Minneapolis. And that was just the preview. Amanda called again at midnight, her tone a whiff of panic. "Dad, what are you doing to us?" People at work saw the news. Derek's office suspended him. "They're saying fraud, Dad. Fraud. You're destroying us." I let her words hang until the silence cut her. Then I answered, quiet as the snow outside. "You destroyed yourselves." I just turned on the lights. I ended the call. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't ache. For the first time since that door slammed, I felt warm. Eddie poured me a shot of bourbon and slid it across the table. "That's phase 1 done," he said. I drank it slow. "Now we move to phase 2. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. "And what's that?" "Take their comfort," I said. "Piece by piece. Leave them with nothing but the cold." Snow rattled against the gym windows like pebbles. I sat at Eddie's battered desk, papers spread wide, phone buzzing every few minutes with new messages from Amanda. She'd gone from sweet to shrill to begging in 3 days flat. Derek, though, stayed silent. Silence meant he was scrambling, maybe plotting a countermove. I knew that kind of silence. It was the kind that comes before a man makes a mistake. Phase 2 started with the mortgage. Morales had handed me the loan application Derek filed in my name. I scanned it, printed a copy, and slid it into an envelope addressed to the state licensing board. Anonymous. Fraud was a slow fuse, but once it burned, it never stopped. At noon, I made my next call. Amanda's office. She worked in healthcare administration, all about appearances and reputations. The receptionist chirped, "Northview Health, how can I help you?" I gave a different name, tipped them that a senior manager was under investigation for financial elder abuse. 5 words, financial elder abuse, can end a career faster than cancer. That evening, Eddie and I sat in his truck across from my house. Lights glowed inside, but the curtains were drawn tight. Around 8, a police cruiser rolled up slow, lights flicking. 2 officers walked to the porch, papers in hand. I didn't need to hear it. I knew they were serving notice about the fraudulent guardianship filings. Amanda opened the door, pale in the glow. Derek stood behind her, jaw tight, hands shoved in his pockets. They took the papers. The officers left. And my kids stood there on the porch, whisper shouting at each other until Amanda finally shoved Derek's chest and stormed back inside. Eddie grinned beside me. "That's a family photo worth keeping." Next morning, Amanda called again. "Dad, please, they're talking about suspending me at work. Derek's credit cards are frozen. We can't get the realtor to return our calls." "Why are you doing this?" "You're our father." I let her ramble, voice breaking, before cutting her off. "I was your father when you shoved me into a storm. Remember that." Then I hung up. By Thursday, Derek broke his silence. A text came through, short and venomous. "You'll regret this. We'll get the house one way or another." I stared at the screen until Eddie leaned over my shoulder. "He just told you his plan." "Threats mean panic." "Good," I muttered. "Panic makes men sloppy." That night, I went back to the house. Not inside, just close enough. Snow covered the yard in a thick, perfect sheet. I walked across it slow, boots sinking deep, leaving prints that led straight to the porch camera. I stopped under the light, stared up at the lens, and pulled Ellen's scarf from my neck. I held it out for the camera, tied it back around my throat. Then I walked away. At dawn, Amanda's voicemail hit like thunder. "Dad, stop scaring us. We saw you on the porch. What do you want? Just tell us what you want." I sat on Eddie's cot, boots still wet, and listened twice. My answer was simple. They'd learn what I wanted when the time was right. That evening, the 6 o'clock news ran the full segment. Veteran father forced into cold by children amidst alleged fraud. They blurred my face, but my porch footage ran clear as glass. Derek's voice. Amanda's words. Their betrayal broadcast citywide. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks, whispering. Phones lit up. Reputations cracked. Amanda left me one more message, nearly hysterical. You're ruining us. Derek's been suspended. My job's on hold. Neighbors won't even look at us. Please, Dad, stop. We'll fix it. We'll give you back everything. I didn't answer. I just poured a bourbon, leaned back in Navarro's chair, and whispered into the empty gym, this is just the middle. The end hasn't even started. And outside, winter pressed its face against the windows, patient and merciless, exactly like me. By the 12th day, Minneapolis felt colder than I'd ever remembered. Snowbanks swallowed cars whole. The wind shoved at buildings like it wanted them gone, and still I walked steady. The streets didn't scare me anymore. I'd already lived the worst storm, the one where your own blood decides you're better off dead. The weather was nothing compared to that. Phase 3. Escalation. That's what Eddie called it when we spread the papers across his gym desk. Receipts, forged documents, copies of pending transactions, and the best of all footage. My own doorbell cam, my neighbor's porch cam, even dash cam stills the Uber driver had sent me, showing me being thrown out with my own pills in a box. Eddie said we had enough to sink them. I told him we weren't sinking them yet. We were going to let them drown themselves first. That morning, I made my first move with the banks. I called the fraud line at First River and gave them Derek's forged loan application, this time with my full name and veteran ID number attached. He used my house as collateral, I told the agent. Without my permission. Check the notary stamp, fake. Silence on the other end. Then the sound of furious typing. Sir, I'll have to escalate this to the fraud division immediately. Do that, I said. And make sure every creditor he owes sees it. He wanted to use my name as leverage. Now let it break his. By noon, I gotten a voicemail from Morales, the retired cop Eddie knew. Bill, heads up. Derek's flagged for attempted loan fraud. He'll be called in for questioning before week's end. Keep your head low. They'll be spitting fire when they find out. Good. Let them choke on smoke. That evening, I walked past my house again. Snow clung to the gutters, icicles sharp as knives hanging from the eaves. Amanda's car was in the drive, but the living room window glowed dark. They were hiding in the back rooms, curtains drawn, phones buzzing nonstop. Their neighbors had started noticing. One porch came across the street, even caught a group of them whispering in the snow, pointing at the house. I knew exactly what they were saying. Fraud, betrayal, shame. At 10 o'clock, Amanda finally called. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying all night. Dad, please. The bank froze everything. They're reviewing our accounts. My job called me and HR says they've seen the news clip. I'm suspended pending investigation. Derek's been questioned by the police. Dad, we can't live like this. We'll lose the house. We'll lose everything. Please, we'll make it right. I stayed silent until she broke. I could hear her muffled sobs, then her whisper, barely audible, we shouldn't have. God, we shouldn't have done it. I hung up without a word. They weren't confessing for me. They were confessing because they were afraid. 2 days later, the 6 o'clock news ran the full piece. My porch footage, clean as glass. Derek's voice, to freedom. To the end of babysitting Dad. Amanda's words, cold as ice. He's a burden. The reporter's tone was sharp, almost disgusted as she narrated how 2 adult children had tried to declare their father incompetent to seize his house and assets. This veteran father, locked out of his own home during a blizzard, now holds evidence of fraud that may result in criminal charges. The city saw them for what they were. And in that moment, my revenge stopped being private. It was public. I sat with Eddie in the gym that night, watching the story replay on loop. His shoulders shook with laughter. They're done, Phil. Cooked. You should see yourself. You're a ghost haunting your own family. They don't even know where you are, but your shadows in every corner. I didn't laugh. I just sipped the bourbon he poured and said, this isn't done until I say it's done. That weekend, Morales brought me another folder. Inside, Derek's gambling debts. Thick, ugly numbers with names of men you didn't want showing up at your door. Payday lenders, credit sharks, even one casino marker stamped, final demand. Morales rubbed his jaw. If he doesn't pay soon, someone meaner than a bank will come collecting. Let them, I said. Let him feel what it's like to open a door and see winter waiting. By the 15th day, Amanda's calls had shifted from begging to bargaining. Dad, if you come home, if you drop this, her voice cracked, we'll sign everything back. We'll admit we lied. Just don't let them take us to court. Please. Derek could lose his license. I could lose my career. We'll lose the house. Her voice rose to a shriek. What do you want from us? I stared at the phone, listening to her panic. The same daughter who wrapped my scarf around my neck when she was 5, giggling at the way it dragged on the floor. The same daughter who had just called me a burden weeks ago shoved me into the cold. Finally, I whispered one line before hanging up. I want you to feel it. And I knew they were starting to. Every call was more frantic, every voicemail shorter, sharper, rawer. Derek sent me a text at midnight. You've ruined us. You think this makes you strong? You're just an old man hiding. I stared at the message and smiled. He still thought hiding was weakness. He didn't understand that disappearing was the strongest move I'd ever made. That night, I left one more gift. On my porch cam, under the blue ring light, I stood again in the snow. I set down the yellow sticky note with the forged court hearing and pinned it to the door. Then I held up a new paper for the camera, Derek's gambling debts, bold and ugly. I didn't need to say a word. The camera saw everything. In the morning, Derek would find it. And he'd know that I had his throat in my fist without even touching him. The storm outside howled louder that night, shaking the gym windows, rattling doors, bending trees. But I didn't hear winter anymore. I heard justice moving closer, slow and merciless. By the 18th day, the house on Hennepin looked like a tomb. Curtains sealed, driveway unshoveled, a realtor's sign half buried under snowdrifts. Neighbors walked their dogs on the opposite side of the street now, heads down, whispering. The city had already made its judgment. Amanda and Derek were finished in the eyes of everyone that mattered. But I wasn't done. Eddie's gym smelled of liniment and old sweat, the heavy bag thudding in the background as some kid worked through his anger. Eddie leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching me study the pile of documents we'd collected. Police notices, bank holds, suspension letters, gambling debts. Every page a nail in their coffin. You've got enough to bury them 10 times over, Eddie said. Why keep pressing? Because they haven't begged yet, I answered. My voice was flat, colder than the storm outside. Not really. Not the way they made me beg with that scarf frozen around my throat. That night, I set the next stage. I drafted letters on an old laptop Eddie lent me. One for Amanda's employer, anonymously tipping them to her fraudulent conservatorship filings, attaching a blurred clip of her calling me a burden. Another for Derek's professional board, highlighting the gambling debts, the attempted forgery, the police notice already filed. I sent them out, timed for Monday morning. By dawn, Amanda's call came in, breathless, hysterical. Dad, they fired me. Not suspended, fired. They said it's elder abuse, it's fraud, it's all over the news. My name is everywhere. You have to stop this. I let her sob into the line. When she finally choked out, I'll lose everything, I answered, soft as frost. That's the point. An hour later, Derek's voice thundered into my voicemail. Old man, you don't know who you're messing with. You think you've won? I'll find you, you hear me? I'll find you. Threats. Empty, shaking threats from a man watching the ground cave under him. Morales called that afternoon with better news. Your son's license? Suspended pending investigation. Gambling, fraud, the whole mess. He's radioactive now. That evening, I decided to tighten the rope. I walked back to my house for the first time since they'd thrown me out. The snow was deep, the porch buried, but I stood under the same blue ring light of the doorbell cam. In my hand was a manila envelope. I placed it gently on the doorstep, right where Amanda would find it. Inside, copies of Derek's debt statements, Amanda's termination notice, and a single photo of me standing in the bus shelter that first night, face gray, scarf iced, box at my feet. On the back, I wrote 4 words in thick black ink, I am still here. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. Amanda's voice trembled, hollow. Dad, please. We can't take it anymore. You've destroyed us. Derek's talking crazy. He says He says maybe it'd be better if, she cut off, sobbing. Please, please stop. We're your children. I sat in the dark of Eddie's office, listening to her voice break apart, and thought of the moment they shut that door, the click of the lock, the cold punching me in the chest. They'd chosen Winter for me. Now Winter was all they had left. Eddie came in, saw the look on my face, and didn't say a word. He just poured 2 bourbons and left one beside me. Tomorrow would be the final blow, the one they'd never recover from, the one that would leave them stripped bare in front of the whole city. And as I sat there, sipping slow, I realized something. Revenge didn't just warm me, it kept me alive. Tomorrow it would end. The 20th dawn came sharp and silver, the kind of cold that cracks your lips before you've said a word. Minneapolis was buried under another storm, but I walked through it steady, scarf pulled tight, boots crunching a path no one else dared take. Today wasn't about hiding. Today was about ending. Eddie had argued the night before. Bill, you've gutted them already. They're done. Jobs gone, money frozen, names poisoned. Why swing again when they're already on the floor? Because they haven't looked me in the eye yet, I told him. They haven't felt the same cold I felt on that porch. I want them to know it was me. And so I went back, not to the gym, not to the motel, but to my own house. My house, the one they'd tried to strip me from. I timed it perfect. 9 in the morning, when the city stirred, but the streets still lay quiet under blankets of white. Derek's truck sat in the driveway half buried, windshield iced over. Amanda's car was crooked, like she'd pulled in quick and hadn't bothered to straighten it. Signs of panic. Signs of 2 people clinging to the last scraps of a life that wasn't theirs to keep. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open with my key, the key they thought they'd stolen but never did. The lock turned smooth, easy. For a second, the smell hit me, my home, my wood floors, the faint ghost of Ellen's cinnamon candles trapped in the walls. It all came rushing back, years of Sunday mornings and quiet evenings. And then I saw them. Amanda sat at the table, eyes hollow, hair matted like she hadn't slept. Derek stood by the counter, phone in his hand, knuckles white around it. When the door opened, both of them froze like deer staring into headlights. "Dad," Amanda whispered. Her voice was raw, shredded. You came back." Derek's eyes burned. "How the hell did you get in?" I dropped the manila folder onto the table. It landed with a slap. Their names stared up at them in black ink. Fraud filings, debt notices, bank freezes, termination letters. Proof stacked on proof. "You should know," I said, my voice even, steady. "The police are done investigating. They'll be here within the week with formal charges. Fraud, forgery, elder abuse. And once that news hits again, every neighbor who saw you smiling on this porch is going to know the truth." Amanda shook her head, tears streaming now. "Dad, we made a mistake. We were desperate. Please, please don't let them take us away. We're your children." Children. That word curled bitter on my tongue. Children don't shove their father into a blizzard with his dead wife's scarf and a box of pills. Derek slammed the phone down, face red. "You think you've won? You're nothing without us. Just an old man in a city that's forgotten him. You'll die alone, and all you'll have left is spite." I stepped closer until I could smell the stale beer on his breath. I'd rather die honest in the cold than live warm on stolen lies. Amanda sobbed, clutching the folder, flipping page after page as if one of them might give her an escape. None of them did. Her hands shook so badly the papers slid to the floor, scattered like fallen leaves. Derek's chest heaved. He looked ready to lunge, fists tight, but I raised one finger. Just one. Calm. Certain. "Go ahead," I said. "Swing at me. The cameras are on. The whole neighborhood's watching." His eyes darted to the window. Porch cam's blue ring glowed steady, watching everything. His fists loosened. His shoulders dropped. The fight drained out of him like dirty water down a sink. "Why are you doing this?" Amanda cried. "We're family. Doesn't that mean anything?" I bent, picked up Ellen's scarf from the chair where they'd thrown it weeks ago, and looped it around my neck. The smell of her perfume still lingered faintly in the threads. I tied it slow, deliberate, let them see the weight of it. "Family works both ways," I said. I spent years giving you everything: money, a house, my peace. And the first chance you had, you tried to erase me. Family doesn't mean blood. Family means loyalty. And you threw that into the snow. Amanda broke, collapsing into a chair, sobs shaking her shoulders. Derek just stared, jaw tight, eyes dead. He'd been hollow for years, I could see it now. Gambling, lies, arrogance. This was just the skin finally tearing to show the rot underneath. I walked to the door, put my hand on the frame, looked back once. By next week, the police will handle the rest. You'll lose the house, the money, your names. And when the city looks at you, they won't see my children. They'll see two people who chose greed over blood. That's your legacy. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Only Amanda's muffled sobs filled the room as I stepped out into the snow. The cold bit my cheeks, but it didn't hurt anymore. It felt clean, honest, like the city itself was nodding in agreement. Eddie's truck waited at the corner, engine humming. He rolled the window down, eyes searching mine. "Well?" he asked. "It's done," I said. "The storm's theirs now." I climbed in, pulled Ellen's scarf tighter, and watched the house shrink in the side mirror as we drove away. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I let myself smile. They thought winter would kill me, but winter belonged to me. If you liked the story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and write in the comments if something like this has ever happened in your life. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for watching.